Virtu, the art of governing. This is a game inspired by the Italian Renaissance. Players will control different houses, different factions, trying to gain control over Italy, over the cities of Italy, and also to expand their influence in other ways, such as by building cathedrals, expanding the religious influence through patronage, and that sort of thing. So you will be scheming and performing actions, and at the end of the game you will score points, and the player with the most points wins the game. The main board is this map of Italy that you see here. It is a mounted map, it looks really nice, and you have cities as represented by those spaces with those numbers there, connected by roads, but also connected by seas, because there are several game effects that will allow you to extend your influence across the sea. You will use these tokens here to indicate control of a city. Booyah there, the Venetians just took control of Messina. When you take control of a city, there is a corresponding tile that you place in your play area, and also these tiles can be used and spent to generate the icons that you see there, and then you flip the tile face down. Generally speaking, in order to perform actions, you will need to fuel them with coins and or with icons. We have troops represented by these very detailed meeples, soldier meeples, but actually the one thing, they look nice, but they don't stand all that easily. They tend to fall quite often, unfortunately. We have there in the middle, not in the middle, but on the board for sure, an area that indicates alliances. So these are powerful political entities that you can forge an alliance with, such as the Kingdom of France, the Ottoman Empire, or the Holy Roman Empire. People seem to ignore those. They are very expensive to get. Yes, they give a victory point, but they don't seem very attractive. Turn order, which is very important. Turn order will change based on the number of cities that the players control. At the beginning of the game, each player controls 2 cities, and then as they acquire more, you will record that on that board, the prestige board. So, for example, if the yellow players acquire another city, they will move their disc there and will reconcile the turn order, because having the most cities means going first, which actually is a rubber banding mechanic, because there's an advantage in going last and seeing what the other players have done before you commit. So if you're behind, you have the advantage of being able maybe to launch, say, a surprise attack at the end of the turn, too late for people to respond to that. The board is also used to keep track of patronage, so by spending coins and icons, crowns or crosses, you will advance there, and by advancing on that track, you will get to acquire patronage cards. So you won't get many during the game. They are expensive to get, but they can be pretty powerful, and they represent iconic people and or works of the Renaissance, as indicated by person or work. And you can only have one of each. You cannot have 2 people, and you cannot have 2 works. 1 and 1, if that much. And also advance on the patronage. On the patronage board will also give you victory points. The heart of the game, how you perform actions, is to this display here, which is called your palace. I'm going to put it here so you can see it better. Your palace is this display here, which has a number of slots on it representing different actions, and then you will also have cards. You start with 3 cards, and then more can be acquired during the game. The cards can be placed in your palace, in those slots, covering the icons that are already there, and that means that for example, right now, if I cover the sponsor action, I don't have it anymore, but I have the action of waging war twice, or I can put it there, so my pool of actions is the same, but now I have those icons there to spend. Your cards can also be placed in these other slots on the sides, so these courtiers are outside of your palace, and later they can be moved. They can go and take control of slots themselves. They can be actually added to existing slots. As you can see, each slot has like a little band at the bottom, so a courtier can be turned into an upgrade for another card, meaning that now that card will produce all of those symbols. They can just stay there. They can just stay on the outside and produce their symbols, but this time when they produce them, you turn them face down. And as you may have noticed, this palace is organized like a rondel, and so to take actions, you will move this marker along. And when you spend a card, if it moves past the arrow next to it, then you can rejuvenate the card that was spent that way. So, the idea is that the game is played in turns called years, and during a year, you will move your marker. The players will take turns in turn order, moving the marker, performing the corresponding action, and then you have a couple of other upkeep phases. So, when it's time for you to take your action, you must move your marker. You can move by 1 or 2 for free. You can also spend coins to move it further. There may also be game effects that allow you to move it further if you have game effects that give you that arrow, for example. The action that you land on is the action that you perform. As simple as that. And as I said, in order for you to fuel the action, to pay for the costs, you will need icons. If there is a card in a place where you are, it has those icons. You can use one type of icon indicated there. So here you could get a +1 in combat. If I spend a coin, I can get a ship, meaning moving troops across the sea. I can get 2 horses, meaning moving 2 troops on land, but only one of these. As you can see, that slash there indicates that, not all of them. This is the general idea, but well, there's a lot that comes with it. Also, to fuel actions, remember you have these cities that you can spend producing, again, coins or crowns. There is another way, get an indulgence, which is ask the Pope for some money or for some influence. You will have to repay them later, but as it happens in the Renaissance, at the beginning people are scared, but then players start taking indulgences very often because it's a powerful action. However, if you take an indulgence, that's a commitment to the Pope, and then your reputation can be in danger. So the indulgence goes on your board, blocking the action that your marker is on when you take it, and so you cannot have more than 1 indulgence per space. You collect the crown, or you use a crown that round, or you collect 3 coins, and then later you will want to repay it with a cross or 2 crowns. If it is still on the board at the end of the game, it is -1 victory point. And then there are other things that may give you symbols, which is again resources. Cathedrals, if you build them, they give you that stuff. If you become a kingdom, if you acquire a title, such as becoming a duchy or a principality, these are the costs, these are the benefits. So you will have your pool of places that generate resources, and again, it's about now performing the actions. Scheming, you will need to spend masks, again, a kind of icon that you can produce from various sources. Spending masks, and then you can place your masks on the board. What is the advantage? They will make it easier for you to take control of cities. You're basically sending a spy there that can help you. Can open the door for you. So now if I was going to try to take control of that city, its resistance value is lowered by 1 because I have a mask there. For a scheming action, I can remove someone else's mask from anywhere. I can also place a mask on someone's board, in which case that blocks that action. They cannot take that action until they take the scheming action themselves to remove to remove that mask. So that's some of the things that you can do. You can send a mask to influence the alliances up there, but again, that's not something that I've seen people do. I did it once and I still lost. As we use our resources, so we're gonna spend our tiles. The action of governing allows you to flip them face up by spending crowns, and so you govern. That is, you ready your cities and other sources ready to give you more stuff. Annexing is a peaceful way of taking control of cities. They need to be adjacent to where you are already, so that would be for yellow. Yellow could try to annex that one. You can also count as adjacent across a sea if you have ships. And so, for example, the Venetians here could try to annex Bari or Ancona because they have a presence on a coast of the same sea. Yeah, let's look at the Venetians. So, you need to produce enough crowns to beat the value of the city you're trying to annex. And again, it can be reduced by a mask of your own kind, can be increased by a mask of somebody else's. If you're able to do so, well, then you take control of that city, and also you take the corresponding tile, because remember that is how you record what you have, and also why you increase your resources. And so I took control of Bari, so I need to find that one. Usually we keep them in loose alphabetical order, and so I take control of Bari. When I annex a city, I took it peacefully, so I keep it. I take the tile face up, meaning it is ready to be milked for resources by little old me. Not so if you take them by force, and we'll talk about that. Other actions such as patronage, and we said patronage or sponsor is what advances you on the patronage track, and so you gain those benefits. Remember, collecting these cards and scoring points, that's pretty neat. And then, of course, the action of waging war, super important. That one is in 2 steps. During the main turn itself, the action of waging war, you will spend horses and or ships to move your troops. And suppose that I spend 2 horses, actually no, 3 horses to move that one there and the soldier here. Boom, boom, 3 horses total. And that's it for now. Waging war simply means to move troops around. And maybe there are other people that will respond. The general idea is both very simple, but it has a couple of steps that will feel very mathematical and fiddly. The general idea is that at the end of the year, when everybody's done with their action on the rondel, you will check for each city that has troops in a place that they don't control, and you'll see how the battle goes. And the idea is that you're trying to beat the defense of the city as modified by various factors, such as people scheming there, enemies being there, other factors from a lot of different possible modifiers. That's a city from another player, and they have this upgrade here. For example, the defense is decreased by 2. You can use icons to buy extra attack, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, if you're able to beat the total of that city, you take control of the city. For example, you just took control of Terracina, and you get the tile as usual, but this time you took it through a siege. People in there are a little tired, and so you get the tile exhausted instead of fresh like you would during that annexation. After you took your action and resolved the sieges, people get to buy stuff, and that's of course a very fun phase. And what they can buy, some of those tiles that I showed you, such as if you have it, a principality or a duchy or things like that. That is also when they can buy these cards that are very powerful, and this is the cost, and this is what they give you. And again, you may remember, you can add this kind of cards either in the main room of your palace as the main action, especially if it has one, like this one, or you can add them to your palace as an upgrade to something else, or you can add them outside, or they can go outside of your palace. At the end of your turn, where everybody buys, that's also when you can buy more soldiers. That's also, however, it's also important at the end of the turn, you also need to pay the soldiers. And very often, You just hire them, they get the job done, and then you don't pay them. Because the ones that are unpaid, they will leave at the end of the turn. This is also the phase when you reshuffle your courtiers. They can move from inside and outside of the palace. So there's a lot going on in that upkeep phase. But the general idea is, again, this is a rondel-based game, this being the rondel, in which the actions and the effects change based on the cards that you put in it and how you upgrade them if you decide to do so. Perform your actions, improve your palace, moving and shuffling things around. Continue until either every city available on the board is controlled by a player, or until any one player controls 8 cities as recorded on the prestige board. Either of those two conditions will end the game, then you will score points from a lot of different sources. Player with the highest score wins the game. I like Virtu quite a bit. Sure, it is complex and demanding also. Also, no random element whatsoever that I could spot. Completely deterministic, which of course means that it's demanding also in the sense that it can be a bit unforgiving. It is hard to come back if you have started to fall behind. Other people have switched from building their engine of resources to building stuff that will give them points, and you're behind there. Hard to catch up. Again, it's complicated, that's it. The general idea is not even all that hard when you look at the actions, but when you look at all of the phases of the upkeep, there's a lot going on. And so you find yourself in the situation in which, well, some friends of yours know the game, and then you have it out one game night and somebody shows up that doesn't know it, then, well, the people who know the game, either they're going to crash that poor person, destroy the person completely, or they're gonna be kind and they're not really playing, they're just teaching them the game. Luckily enough, I got now some friends who, like me, have played the game, and I think we'll play more in the future, but it maybe from time to time we'll just, invite a new person in. We crash the person because that's the rite of passage, but then we'll have one more person who can play Virtu. So, it's complicated. The first time is expected to go slow, but then actually once people know how to play it, with 3 players, you can play it in under 2 hours, and you still have a nice narrative arc. You still start with a small court, you recruit courtiers, you shuffle them around, you start spreading around the peninsula and across the Mediterranean. And it's really interesting how the different houses have different powers. So the Neapolitans are better at scheming, the Venetians have control or an advantage over the sea, and so they're going around and maybe start grabbing some pirate ports that cannot be annexed peacefully, but they'll just send troops there to defeat them. A lot of interesting, the Florentines are there kind of in the middle, and they do a mix of diplomacy and warfare. A lot of interesting elements. I like rondel based games, and here you have that extra elements of complexity again, of course, changing the actions, sometimes changing them radically, like I have it or I don't have it, sometimes changing the value, the power, how many icons you have, and just budgeting all of those things, figuring out how to get the coins from the icons to get all that you want to do is a very interesting challenge, also one that you're not likely to do successfully, meaning it is a game where, as good games do, you find yourself wanting to do more things that you can possibly do. You find yourself wanting to take a certain action. I'm 1 crown short. I'm like 1 coin short. All time to call the Pope and get an indulgence. So there's that element of like not being able to do all that you want to do. From time to time, well, you can again make up that gap by taking an indulgence, but then you have to pay it back later. Lot of interesting elements here. There's definitely an element of engine building, but that feels very dynamic. Sometimes when in engine building games, after I build my engine, it becomes trivial because I'm operating every time in the best possible way. And maybe I'm doing partially this, but meanwhile I have to check whether the Venetians are gonna do a D-Day landing in some of my towns and take control of it, or somebody else is gonna come and take a city away from me, or grab a city before I get there, then taking it is harder than when it is neutral. So you build an engine, but within a constantly shifting landscape shaped by other people's decisions, and that is also very interesting. Some very minor minuses. The action of governing is just a little bit uninteresting because you're flipping tiles face up. Very, very important, but that turn in which you're just doing that and people maybe are doing more fun stuff, and then maybe there's a longer phase when everybody's buying troops, etc., 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 can be a little less interesting. But that's such a minor thing. Those miniatures planting troops, they tend to fall down quite a bit. But if these are the only things I can complain about, well, that tells you that actually overall I really, really, really like this game. The fact that it's demanding, takes a while to play, to learn. I don't take it's not a negative nor a positive. It just means that there is a level of complexity that is not for everybody. But overall, yes, this is a pretty difficult game, but I think it captures many aspects of the theme of the politics and war for the Renaissance pretty well. But most importantly, with the right people who have put in the work to learn the mechanics and figure out the strategy, well, it is a very satisfying game to play.